Hey everybody, welcome to our class today. So excited to have you with us. This is a fun class. This is the second class of two classes on resolving duplicates. So last Sunday we talked about why duplicates are in Family Tree and how to recognize them. And then today we're going to be focusing mostly on how to resolve those duplicates. But before we do that, here's a look at what's coming up. Next Sunday, we're going to have a class called Mysteries of the Changelog Revealed. And this is going to be exciting because, as many of you are probably aware, FamilySearch has recently redesigned the changelog. So we will be talking about the improvements and how they can help us in doing our family history. Followed by another one of my favorite classes, just because this is a principle that literally changed the way I do family history. And it helped me become a lot more confident that I was doing reasonably accurate work. And that is the principle of using what you know already to discover what you don't know, what you need to know. So hope you can join us for that class, those two classes. And then on November 16th, we have a class not by me, which I'm very excited about. This is by Kathryn Van Wagoner. I like her first name. She's going to be talking about the Scotland's People website. So if any of you have Scottish heritage, this website is amazing, and I know that I'm not using it to its full potential. So I'm very, very excited to learn from Kathryn about how I can use this website more effectively. So, with that being said, I want to invite everybody, as usual, to watch for key takeaways. In other words, something that you learn from today's class, and it doesn't have to be something the presenter said. It can be something you realize, an epiphany, a prompting of the spirit, whatever it might be. But at the end, we're going to invite anyone who would like to share their key takeaways in the chat. So here's what we've got on the schedule for today. First of all, why does correct merging matter? Why are we even having this class? What's the deal about merging? Then how can I be confident that two profiles really should be merged? Then we're going to be talking about the new merge experience. For a long time, there was an updated merge experience in FamilySearch Labs, and then it was released to the public. And the improvements are substantial. They are so exciting, and I suspect strongly that they have cut down on bad merges. That's how significant the improvements are. So we're going to be looking at those. Then we'll have an actual demo of merging duplicates, because as much as we can talk about principles or commonalities, actually doing a merge, almost everyone is different, right? You run into snags you weren't expecting, or you have questions that never showed up before, but they show up on this particular merge. So I actually am going to do a merge that I tried it a little ahead of class and ran into some questions. And at first I thought, oh, I don't want to do this. It will confuse people. I'll find an easier example. And then I thought, no, wait a second. This is what people are going to be dealing with. And so we'll do an example that just isn't nice and tidy and clean, but that is more realistic. And hopefully that will give you some good background and some good ideas in case you come across these types of questions on your merges. And then finally, we will wrap up with some tips, tricks, and reminders. Okay, why does correct merging matter in a shared tree? So go back with me to the beginning of new.familysearch.org. FamilySearch had been online for almost 10 years. So they went online with a no-edit website in 1999. Then they released new.familysearch.org in phases that ran from, oh gosh, to the best of my memory, it was like 2005 to 2007, something like that. So we had new.familysearch.org for a while. It also was not editable, but you could at least, or let me back up on that. the way they did it, actually, this is too much of a tangent, so I need to be brief about this. But in the old system, new.familysearch.org, you could not edit information, but you could add what they called opinions. So then you could get, if people disagreed about a person's birth date, you could have like 10 different birth dates listed. It was a good start, but it got kind of crazy. And it actually, in that system, we had a lot of duplicates. Then we moved over to Family Tree, the current system that we're using. And as I saw all these duplicates on my family, I thought duplicates are a huge problem. Oh my goodness, they're resulting in duplicate temple work, in duplicate research. They're confusing people. We need to clean up these duplicates. Then, as I started watching the results of merges of these duplicates, I started to question that. And I thought, okay, duplicates are definitely a problem, but are bad merges? Like, how do those compare to duplicates? And after trying to undo a number of bad merges, I came to the definite conclusion that as much as we don't want duplicates, as much as we want a clean system with one profile per human, bad merges are worse than duplicates. I would rather have a duplicate in the system than have to undo a bad merge. Again, we want to clean up both of them because we're trying to make an accurate family tree, right? But bad merges are worse. Why is that? Well, in a shared tree, here's what happens with bad merges. Bad merges tend to attract bad sources and bad relationships. I should actually change that to bad hints because they not only attract bad record hints, they attract bad duplicate hints. It's the principle of GIGO that we talked about last week that Gordon brought up, that it's the old computer acronym, right? GIGO is garbage in, garbage out. So, in other words, if you give a computer, quote, garbage, most likely it's going to give you garbage back. So if we give Family Search an inaccurate birth date for someone, or we give Family Search the wrong parents, probably Family Search is going to come back with incorrect record hints and incorrect duplicate hints because we didn't give it good information. So bad merges tend to put bad information on profiles. So that attracts more bad information, which attracts even more bad merges and other errors, which actually can result in more duplicates because somebody comes along and looks for a profile in Family Tree. They can't find it because it's been badly merged, and then they create a duplicate without realizing they're creating it because they can't see the original record. And these errors can spread across generations. They take a lot of time to diagnose, sometimes hours and hours, and they're difficult and time consuming to fix. Honestly, the best time to stop a bad merge is before it's ever done. So that's what we hope to focus on today, to give you the tools and the understanding to avoid those bad merges and be confident that you're merging correctly. So, how can I be confident that two profiles should be merged? Well, let's borrow an adage from the construction industry. And to be inclusive, one day I was teaching this class and a sister said, this adage also applies to quilting. She was an accomplished quilter. So anything like quilting or construction where you're building something of value, a family tree, here is the adage. Measure twice, cut once. The opposite of that is measure once or not at all, measure sloppily, and then you're probably going to have to cut multiple times. It's actually worth it to make this investment in being careful up front before you actually cut or actually do the merge. And then that way your chances of doing it correctly are exponentially higher, just as they are in building a home, designing a quilt, whatever it might be. If we take the care up front, the end result is almost always going to be better. So here is a little process that we can follow to be confident that two profiles should be merged. The first step we talked about last week, actually, and it is just doing that initial quick review to compare the information, the relationships, the sources, watching for red flags, and you're just trying to say, is it even worth it for me to look into these people? Do they at least initially look like they're the same person? Sometimes you'll look and you'll go, oh, this guy was christened 20 years after the other guy. They can't possibly be the same person. But you do this initial review and you say, yeah, there's enough evidence that I should keep looking into this. It's looking good that they could be the same person. So after you've done that, then the next step is to go into the change log and to verify the intended identity of each person. If that's an unfamiliar term to you, intended identity only comes into play in shared trees where different people are contributing. And basically, the intended identity is which human being the creator of the profile was trying to represent in that profile. And you might be saying, well, duh, of course, the person is making a profile to represent a certain human being. Like I made a profile for my great great grandmother. But in a shared tree, people can come along and actually change the original identity through bad merges or adding incorrect relationships, changing birth dates, that type of thing. So the original intended identity gives us a baseline for comparing two profiles where we're kind of going back to, okay, who were these people, who were these profiles really meant to represent before any bad merges or anything were done. And so that gives us a solid foundation. And so we try to establish that intended identity from the change log. And again, as we go, we're watching for incorrect merges or other problems. We make a note of things that we find. Then the third step is, if necessary, you resolve problems such as incorrect merges. If you try to do a merge on someone who's already badly merged, it actually makes things worse. We also want to add missing information, fix any mistakes, maybe do additional research if that seems called for. So we get to the point where we're very confident who those two profiles represent. And because of that, we're ready to make a decision. Do they represent the same human being? And we want to be sure we're going by facts, not assumptions. One of the biggest problems as far as assumptions when merging is to just decide that two profiles are the same based only on the name. Oh, this one's John Smith, that one's John Smith. Well, there can't be more than one John Smith in the world, so they must be the same. I'm going to merge them. I'm being a little facetious there, but often that's what I found is bad merges are done because people decide that the similarity of name is enough and they don't look at the other facts. So the way to avoid bad merges is to go beyond that and be sure that you're looking at facts and not just assumptions about the name or about anything else. So when you do this little evaluation to decide if those profiles represent the same human being, there are three possible outcomes. One is, yes, I am very confident that they represent the same person, so I'm going to merge them. Another possible outcome is no. My research shows that they are clearly different people. I'm not going to merge them, and I'm going to mark them as not a match. But there's a third option that sometimes we kind of don't want to deal with, or we think, oh, I must be a incompetent family historian if I can't figure this out. That is totally not true. Sometimes a legitimate answer is, I don't know. I honestly cannot tell, based on the information I have right now, whether these two people are the same. If that's the case, we don't want to merge. Let me give you a rather humorous but real example. One day I came across a merge that was clearly wrong. The reason statement that the woman had given for the merge was, I really don't think these two profiles are the same, but I'm going to merge them to, quote, clean up the tree. So apparently it kind of bugged her that there were profiles floating around with similar names. And so even though she knew or strongly suspected they weren't the same, she merged them anyway. That's probably not what we want to do, right? Because we want our tree to be accurate. And if there really are two different guys named John Smith, then they each deserve a profile, and we don't merge them just to quote clean up the tree and get rid of what we consider to be extra profiles. So I don't know is a perfectly legitimate response when you're evaluating two profiles for a potential merge. Let's look at a couple of examples. The first one is a very clean textbook example. It's actually the one we went over last week. So for many of you, this will probably be a review, but I think it's worth looking at. So here we've got two profiles for Jane Gunton. One ends in QW3, the other ends in FV3. So they're two different records or profiles in FamilySearch. But as we look at them, we notice that not only do they have the same name, but they have the same christening date and location. As we scroll down the page, we look at the parents and we go, Samuel, Samuel, Elizabeth, Elizabeth, exactly the same. We look at the sources. The sources match too, and they match the christening date of May in 23 at Great Yarmouth in Norfolk. And so everything is lining up. We want to check the intended identity, so we go over to latest changes on the profile and we click show all. And here is Jane number one, QW3. Here is her changelog. It's very clean. Notice there's no merges of any type, let alone questionable merges. There's just the parents being added, there's the christening, there's the name, there's the source. I don't see any red flags in here. So I don't look at anything in here and go, oh, that can't be right. Like a child born, 10 years after the father's death or, weird things like that. There's nothing weird in here. It all looks good. I bring up the other changelog, and for this Jane, same thing. Just one set of parents. The christening matches what we've already seen on the record. The name matches. Everything looks good. No weirdness or bad merges. So it's safe to say that the intended identity of these two profiles is the same for this Jane Gunton, christened on a certain date in a certain place with certain parents. So this one is a slam dunk. Everything lines up. Both profiles clearly represent the same person. Now let's look at one that is not quite so clean and how we can figure out whether these two people should be merged. So here is Ruth Greenwood. She's got a possible duplicate suggested by FamilySearch. So let's walk through our process and see how it can help us tell if these two women should be merged. First, we're going to get to know Ruth number one, ending in H38. She's from Rishworth, Ripponden in Yorkshire. She was christened on Christmas Day. How cool is that? In the same location. As we look at her family section, we see that she's married to a man named James Schofield, who was born in 1835. They've got all these kids. They're all born in Lancashire, but some of them are in Hollinwood. Some of them are in Oldham. These are fairly close together. She's got parents named William and Hannah. And as we look at her sources, everything looks good. There's no sources in here where I go, oh, that source can't possibly apply to this woman. No, they all lined up. They all look appropriate. So we've pretty much established who this Ruth Greenwood is. We know her spouse, her children, her parents, her birth information. And here's a quick summary of everything that we know about her. And this is very important because this is going to help us determine whether the other profile is for the same person. So, what do you notice first off about this profile? Go ahead and put your observations in the chat. Remember, we're trying to tell if that Ruth we just looked at is the same as this one. What do you guys notice? Not much information, right, Gordon? Rose pointed out there's only one source, so that often can be questionable if there's just one source. What do you notice about the name? Yeah, no last name, Robert. Exactly. I mean, how many human beings do you think have been named Ruth since the beginning of time? Yeah, Nancy pointed out, just first name. So we have nothing to go on as far as a surname here. Then let's see, someone else. Oh, Julia, yes. No birth, no christening. This is very sparse information. All we've got is a first name of Ruth with no vital information. As we scroll down the page, we start to see something a little more helpful. So there is a spouse named James Schofield, but if we were to pop over to his profile, he also has no vital information. We don't know when he was born, where he was born. We know nothing about him either. We do have a child, and this is looking like this might be the best clue that we have to go on. So this daughter, Lavinia, was christened in 1871 in Morley, Yorkshire. We look at the source, that one source that, let's see, it was Rose pointed out, I think, right? Yeah, Rose. Oh, Rose says this one source may have been the reason that person was created. Yes, I think you're right in this case, Rose, that this source was the basis of creating this profile. So as we look at this source, it's a christening for Lavinia. It matches everything we know about Lavinia. So the source looks good. It's just not a lot of information to go on. We look at the intended identity and it pretty much matches everything on the profile page. So there's no corrupted information, there's no apparent bad merges. All we know about this Ruth, we don't know a last name. We know she married a James Schofield and had a daughter named Lavinia. So I like to do comparison tables just because I can't hold everything in my brain. Like after a while, it all turns into spaghetti soup, and I'm like, I've got to write this down or I'm not going to be able to make sense of it. So here is a comparison between our two Ruths. Here we've got a surname, date and place. Here we only have a first name, no vital information. Matching husband, but the place, could there be more than one man named James Schofield? Yeah, there's probably a boatload of them. So this guy we have vitals, this guy we don't. Here we've got all their kids. Here we've got Lavinia. She's born in a different place. But there is a place where she could fit. So there's a kid born in 66, a kid born in 73. Could Lavinia fit in this gap? Yeah, totally. And Morley? Well, yeah, they went to a different place, but what if the dad went there temporarily for work or something? I mean, it is possible that one of their children could have been born in a different place for a number of different reasons, plausible reasons. So we've got some good comparisons here. Oh, I forgot I had this. Morley is only about 35 miles from Oldham. So even back in the late 1800s, that was not an impossible distance to travel, right? That the family could have gone there for work. They could have gone to visit family members, who knows? But it wasn't like this, it wasn't across the Atlantic Ocean or something that would be very difficult and time consuming for a large family. So it's still looking plausible, right? There's no definite contradictions, but here's the thing. There's also no definite proof. We're not yet ready to merge. So I find it helpful to try and formulate a question that I need to answer in order to be confident that the two women are the same. So here's the question that I formulated, and this isn't the only way to ask it, but this is one way. This is what was helpful for me. So what I want to know is Ruth, this one with an unknown maiden surname and no vital information, but she is the mother of Lavinia. Is this Ruth the same person as Ruth Greenwood, who had all these kids. So notice we're triangulating or using evidence from other relationships, not just from the individual themselves. So, what could we check to determine whether these two women are the same? Well, in every country, it's going to be slightly different, but there's going to be commonalities too, such as checking censuses and checking birth records. And that's indeed what we want to do here. So my first thought was to try and find Lavinia in the census. And if I found her with all those siblings, and then maybe I could find a christening or something, then I'd be very confident that she belonged in that family and that her mom Ruth was the same mom Ruth of all the other kids. The second thing I would want to check would be a christening record because that would give us a residence. It would tell me the father's occupation, and I could see, oh, is dad James Schofield of all those Lancashire kids? Does he have the same occupation when he had a kid in Yorkshire? So that would help me tell if it's the same person. And then finally, I love this about English research. Ever since 1837, England has had a national government birth registry where every child that was born was supposed to be registered. Of course, there are some little exceptions, especially near the beginning where they were still implementing it. But legally, you have to register. A child has to be registered. So we've got this national registry that makes it very easy to find people's birth information. So I decided to dive in. I looked for Lavinia in the census. She wasn't there. I did every kind of creative searching I could think of, and Lavinia is a rather unusual name in England at that time. I mean, it's not Sarah or Jane or Mary. Lavinia was pretty unusual. She should have showed up. I looked for variations on her name, like what if they just said Lavina instead of Lavinia or Lavana or something. I looked for everything I could think of, could not find this girl. So I looked for christenings, and lo and behold, since she had an exact christening date, it actually was pretty easy to find her christening. But now, for those of you who have seen this example before, because I do recognize some names that I'm pretty sure you've been through this class before, like my cousin Gordon, what do you notice? Maybe for the people who haven't been through it before, what do you notice about this christening that would explain why I couldn't find her in the census? It is hard to read, Gordon. That's a good point, especially depending on your screen. Yeah, Marge was able to see it on her screen. Marge, thank you. Notice that Lavinia was 15 when she was christened. That is unusual. Most of the time, children are christened within like a year of their birth. But in this case, for whatever reason, she was christened older, and the clergyman, thank goodness, the vicar, made a note of it. So, no wonder I couldn't find her in the census because she was born in 1856, not 1871. Once I had the right birth date, everything fell into place. Here is Lavinia, and yes, her name was spelled slightly different, but still close enough. There's her mom, Ruth. Lavinia is a niece to George, and Ruth is a sister to George. What does that mean that Ruth's maiden name probably is? Is it Greenwood? If George is her brother? Yep, Rose. Most likely it's Firth. But again, like, what if this was a half brother? Or what if, I mean, I always like to double check just a little bit, not exhaustively, but just enough to be confident. So I found Lavinia in another census 10 years later. She's listed as a granddaughter to Joseph Firth, so Firth is looking more likely as Ruth's maiden name. The final proof came when I was able to find Lavinia's birth registration. Actually, turns out she's born in 55. Her mother is Ruth Firth, not Ruth Greenwood. So those two women should not have been merged. Okay, let's look quickly. Yeah, Gordon said could be a cousin. Absolutely.
Hey,
Let's look
Mr.
now. Oh,
Grant,
yes.
there was one question earlier by
Yeah.
Alan wanting to know if you would merge the children first and then the parents, or the parents first and then the children. Rose responded that she just did it yesterday and she merged the parents first and the children were easier to merge. But in your experience, does it matter, or which one would you prefer?
Oh, thank you for asking that question. I honestly, I've tried it both ways, and for me personally, I did not find that it made a lot of difference. I do like, I'm sorry, who was it who made the suggestion, Rose? Elder Farnsworth?
Yes, it was Rose.
Yeah, I do like the thought of merging the parents and then having the children be visible all there so that could make it easier to merge. So that would make me lean slightly towards merging the parents first. But I've tried it both ways, and if you merge the kids first, then you could see the parents which need to be merged. So really, I think both ways will work. It's just kind of what you prefer to do. So yeah, Rose says the children clearly look like duplicates. Also, Marion, I apologize. I missed that you also, in addition to Marge, you noticed the 15 years old on the christening. I just now saw that in the chat. Okay, you guys, I love this new merge experience. I am just thrilled with the improvements that Family Search has made. So this old merge screen probably looks familiar to a lot of you, and it was good. I mean, it gave us the opportunity to do merges. It was helpful, but there were definite areas for improvement. It only offered minimal guidance, like it might sometimes say, oh, this person has already been merged too many times, or the birth years are more than 3 years apart. But other than that, the guidance was pretty minimal, to be honest. It was long. You had to walk through 3 pages of doing this merge, and there was no comparison at the end. So it wasn't easy to see what you were keeping, what you were discarding, how the two profiles compare that you were considering merging. Here's a big one. The old one actually allowed you to make changes during the merge as to what to keep or discard, and Family Search discovered that that was causing a lot of problems. People would disconnect relationships, for example, that shouldn't have been disconnected. So suddenly you merged the two kids, and the parents were, floating off in the ether because they had been incorrectly disconnected as part of the merge. The last item, you guys will probably laugh, those of you who have been through this class before, but you know that I am not a fan of those canned reason statements, mainly because they were just misused so often. For instance, people would often choose the one that said everything matches when it clearly didn't. And so Family Search found that these statements were just not offering useful information a lot of the time because they weren't accurate. Bad merges were an ongoing problem. Just it was very clear that people needed better guidance in merging. So here is what the new merge experience looks like. There are three columns for easy comparison. On the far left, you've got the person who will be deleted in the merge if you finalize the merge. In the middle column, you have who's going to be the survivor, how they currently look. And then in the final column, you get to see before you do the merge exactly what the merged person would look like if you finalize the merge. I don't know how what you guys think, but to me that is huge. This information was not easy to see with the old merge process. The other thing I absolutely love is that Family Search gives you a recommendation on whether or not to do the merge. It's right up here at the top, so it's like right in our faces so that we know right away if this is probably a good merge or probably not a good merge. There are 4 different recommendations that you'll see at the top of the screen depending on the match between the two profiles. The first one is that there's no obvious problems, so there'll be a check mark and the notation that you can merge the duplicates. They do still recommend that you find proof that they represent the same person before merging. Some profiles will have minor inconsistencies, so there are things you want to look at, but they don't necessarily mean that there's a problem. So these types of profiles are labeled potential merge. They've got a question and it's recommended that we review them carefully. Some profiles will have major inconsistencies, and in that case, FamilySearch says merge not recommended. And what I love on the merge screen is they will actually point out the inconsistencies, yellow boxes for minor inconsistencies and red boxes for significant inconsistencies. Then the last one that is awesome is for some people, if you try to merge them, FamilySearch now just won't let you. For instance, this one says, because unable to merge, a parent cannot be merged with his or her child, because obviously, physically, it's not possible for a parent to be the same human being as one of his or her children. So one of these four recommendations will be displayed to guide us to be more confident whether or not that merge is correct. If you're not yet seeing the new merge experience, then you should see this banner up at the top of the page. And it'll say something very positive about the new merge experience. Like this one says, hey, the sources are easier. And I've seen like other statements. I don't know if they rotate them out or change them or whatever, but you'll see something positive about the new merge experience. And the most important thing, you'll see a button that says try now. And so you can click that. And if you get into the new merge experience and for some reason you're like, oh, I don't really like this. I'm very uncomfortable. I want to go back to the old one. At least for the time being, as of today, there is an option to go back to the old one if you prefer. So hopefully that maybe makes you feel a little more comfortable if you haven't tried the new one to go ahead and try it knowing that you can get back to the old one if you want to. Okay, let's look at a demo of merging duplicates. Oops, I did not want to go there. Let's escape out and we're going to Family Search. So for today's example, FamilySearch has suggested that there are some duplicates for Samuel. We're going to look at this one right here. So I'm going to click possible duplicate and I get this opportunity to review the merge. And it's going to bring up this beautiful new merge screen that we just looked at. At the top, we've got the recommendations saying this is looking good. There's no significant inconsistencies. So I'm still going to go down and look though. Oh, one thing I wanted to comment on. One of the big complaints that I heard often about the old merge screen was it didn't show spouses across from spouses and kids across from kids. The new merge screen takes care of that. They still allow you to view it the old way, where you view it by family. So here's spouse number one, spouse number two, kid number two. But they also let you group by relationships, which to me is a lot more helpful because we're comparing apples to apples. So here's spouse number one, spouse number two, kid number one, kid number two. So as I look at this, I see that there's a guy named Samuel Gunton who married a woman named Elizabeth, but we've got no last name. They had a kid named Samuel. They had a kid named Jane. But from this, I do not have the information to know whether, okay, let me back up just one second. You know, I talked about formulating questions. So here, the question I want to ask that would let me know if this Samuel is the same as this one is is this Samuel? Okay, here's Dad Samuel. We don't know when he's born, but he named his son after him. We've got son Samuel, born in 1817. We've got Jane, born in 1823. Are these two siblings? If they are, these guys necessarily are the same. So that's what I'm going to try and find out. Is Samuel the same as Jane? One thing I notice on here, and I'm actually looking at the time, I'm not going to take time to fix this today, but what I would normally do, this Samuel, let me just bring this up and show you. For a while back around, I don't know, it was 2014, 2015 or whatever, there was a bug on Family Search where if you, I don't even remember what caused it, but Ron Tanner explained this, that under certain circumstances, the full name was added as an alternate name and the surname was deleted from this person. So my question here was this really Samuel Gunton? I'm back to the merge screen. And I look over here and I say, oh, that's that bug that Ron Tanner told us about. This really is a Gunton, so I don't have to be worried. Actually, I am going to take time to do this. So I'm just going to correct this while I'm in here, say Gunton. And the fact that his father is Gunton makes me feel very comfortable that this guy's name is really Samuel Gunton. So now I'm going to go back here and notice that it updated, which kudos to Family Search for refreshing that on the fly. But now I want to know, do I have reason to believe that these two kids are siblings? So to do that, I'm going to pop over here and I want to look at the christening record because the christening record should tell me if they're christened in the same place and if the dad has the same occupation. We already know he has the same name, but let's look and see if there's any other evidence that would tell me that Samuel and Jane are siblings and that therefore Samuel and Elizabeth are the same people. So I'm going to pop over to Ancestry. Just my personal preferences. I find their interface more user friendly. So here we've got Samuel Gunton came right up. Let's double check 18th February 1817 in Great Yarmouth because I forgot to look at this before. Oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. Let's scroll up. 18th of February 1817 in Great Yarmouth. So totally matches. And now what I'm going to do here is to share a trick that I've shared before. I'm going to go to the one with the image. Let me go over there. There's a transcription without an image and there's one with an image. It's more helpful to see the image. But I want to show a trick that I've used before and I think it bears repeating just because it's been so helpful to me in situations like this. So first of all, let's look at Samuel, the son's christening record, and let's see, let me blow it up here, what the dad's occupation is. So where is our Gunton guy? We're looking at the surnames. Gunton. There we go. So there is Samuel, the son of Samuel and Elizabeth Gunton, living in Yarmouth. So that matches the christening location. He is a sailor. So now, if I were to find Jane's record and see if she was also living in Yarmouth and her dad is a sailor, then I'm going to feel very confident that those two kids are siblings and that the dads named Samuel are the same. So I'm going to get out of here and I want to search the whole record collection. Actually, why did I go back? I thought I was going to stay on the one with the transcription. I was wrong. So here is a cool little trick. In Ancestry, if you click the title, you get taken to a search form that searches just that record collection. And here is the trick that has helped me so much. I'm going to put in Gunton as the surname, but no first name because I want to find both Jane and Samuel. The earliest date I want was 1817. Jane was in 1823. So I'm going to put a midpoint. I'm going to put 1820 and then I'm going to choose plus or minus. Let's do 17 to 20 is 3 years, so 2 wouldn't cover it. Let's do 5, so plus or minus 5. And then we're going to say Great Yarmouth, Norfolk. And then for the parents, we're going to type in Samuel, Gunton, and Elizabeth. And now we're going to search. Okay, so this shows me all the kids that are in this collection that match my search criteria of Dad Samuel, Mom Elizabeth, kids in Great Yarmouth. Here is Jane, our other Jane, the person that we're considering as a possible sibling. Here is a James. So there's possibly another sibling. So I would make a note of this, but we're not going to go down this rabbit hole right now. Then there is Samuel, our guy that we've been looking at. So I've got three kids of this family potentially that can help me, establish and complete that family, make sure I've got all the siblings and that they really are siblings. Let's take a look at Jane. Let's see if her dad is a sailor. So we're going to pop into the image again. I wish they would have indexed the occupations. We've got Leighton, Burton, Decker, Brown. Not seeing it on that side. Ah, there they are. Gunton. So here we've got Jane, the daughter of Samuel and Elizabeth Gunton, living in Yarmouth. He is a mariner, which is the same thing as a sailor. In other words, he made his living on the sea. So now I am very comfortable that these two people are the same, that the kids are siblings, and therefore the two Samuels are the same. So I'm going to get out of here, and go back to our merge screen. And now, see, I've still got all the comparison is still visible. This is such a clean, easier experience than the old one. I'm going to click merge. Now look at the new way of doing reason statements. Like, this is amazing to me. We don't have the canned reason statements anymore that people could potentially use incorrectly. Instead, we can select multiple options and we can add something if we need to. So for this case, I'm going to say the first and last names do match. The children match based on my research. Now, that's a tricky one. It doesn't say based on my research, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because my research does show that those kids are both his. And I'm also going to say that the spouse matches, but I'm also going to put in as a reason statement. Let's see, I didn't even think about this beforehand, so this is really on the fly. I might have to do some editing. Christening records for Samuel's children, Jane and Samuel, show that he was a sailor mariner. And so, I don't know, christening records show that he had the same occupation. That's what I'll say. Show that he had the same occupation, and then I'll put sailor mariner. Okay. So now I've done my due diligence. I've explained why I know these people are the same. I'm going to click submit. And the merge was successful.
Mr.
That,
Grant, there was a
yes.
question earlier about how to change a reason statement, edit it. While you're right there, could you just very quickly show how to edit that if you wanted to change a reason statement?
Yeah, actually, after you've done the merge, the only way right now is if I clicked undo merge, I can do that. But once the merge is finalized, you can't change the reason statement. And actually, it doesn't look like I caught it quite soon enough. So notice that this reason statement is not editable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, actually, merge reason statements, to my knowledge, you've never been able to edit them. What you can do is undo the merge and redo it with a different reason statement. But to my knowledge, in the changelog, the reason statements you can edit are for attaching sources. So things for attaching sources, and there might be some others that you can go back and edit. But for merges, I have never observed that you could edit those after the merge was finalized.
Thank you.
So thank you for bringing up that question. Okay, let's see. Let's go to our survivor, Samuel. And then, of course, I'd want to go back and, merge the rest of these guys, merge all the Elizabeths, get this all cleaned up. But for purposes of our class today, that's all we're going to do. And let's pop back over and wrap up. Oh, Elder Farnsworth, I should ask you though, were there any questions?
Nope, we covered them all.
Okay, great. So let's go back into slideshow mode and let's wrap up with some tips, tricks, and reminders. Remember that in the new merge process, information cannot be edited during a merge. And again, this is brilliant because people were disconnecting people that shouldn't have been, or like in the very beginning when they let you not bring over memories, people were disconnecting memories. It just caused so many problems to be able to edit during a merge. The best practice is to make any needed changes before the merge. And one reason for that is as you make those changes, you may discover, oops, these people are not the same after all. So do any cleanup before the merge, and that way you can be more confident that the merge is correct. Because now we can't clean up during a merge. If you want to switch the survivor, there is a switch button there. Remember from our little diagram, the person on the left is going to be archived. The person in the middle is the potential survivor. The person on the end is how it will look after the merge is done. So if you decide, oh, I'd really rather this guy be the potential survivor, then just click switch and it switches places between these two people. What information is kept? Everything. The little exception to that is if there are conflicts, the information on the potential survivor is selected. So here's an example. Notice that this vicar abbreviated the name SAML. And this is on the person to be deleted or archived, so it was not selected. Samuel was selected on the potential survivor. It's actually not because it was a better quality name, because FamilySearch does not currently evaluate that. It's just because if they have to make a choice, they're going to choose the option on the potential survivor. Suppose that you looked at this and this was the better one. Well, then you just click this and this one would end up on the survivor. I showed you group by relationships. Again, I just find that that makes it incredibly easier to compare family members, and I feel like that helps me make better decisions when I'm merging. Here's a reminder, this confuses especially new users sometimes. Only these people at the top are being merged. Sometimes, especially new users will think, oh, if I merge him, it's going to merge all the spouses or any duplicate children, but it actually doesn't. These people have to all be merged separately. And I think that's smart, to be honest, because if you could merge like 5 people at a time, I can just imagine how that would multiply bad merges. So one at a time. Finally, these tips for avoiding bad merges. Be especially careful with common names. Every culture has them. In England or Ireland or Scotland, Jones, Gonzalez in Hispanic countries, de Jong in Germanic countries, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, so forth. Every country is going to have their Smiths, right? So we want to always be careful with those common names. And even with uncommon names, families would often use the same first name and last names even repeatedly across generations. Well, I shouldn't say even, of course it would be the same last name, but they would even use the same unusual first names repeatedly across generations. And in some cultures, children received the same name as a deceased sibling, but they were two different human beings and shouldn't be merged. The last one is, when in doubt, don't merge. So, you guys, that brings us to the end of our class today. We talked about why correct merging is so important, how to be confident when you're merging, talked about the new merge experience, did a demo, and ended up with tips, tricks, and reminders. And we want to invite you now to share your key takeaways with the class. What did you observe or learn or discover today that you think will help you going forward or will help you help others? And here is the handout, and the link is also in the chat. So just to give you a quick preview of what the handout looks like. go in here, it's got information for all the classes. So today we are on Intermediate Class 3, which is Duplicates Part 2. How's that for being confusing? How to resolve duplicates. Here's a bunch of supplemental information and also a participant survey. Would love to get your feedback on the class today, especially on how we can improve. So let's see. I am going to go back now and look at key takeaways. So Marion's takeaway is do any cleanup before the merge. Nancy's looking forward to the new merge. I agree, Nancy. It's awesome. Nancy E says, first time hearing about the new merge option, so that's exciting. Anne said nothing new on her end, but good reminders. And also to check the changelog before merging. Nodaya, oh, I always need to remember how to say your name. I think it's Nodaya. She said she's going to try the new merge. Teresa said she's been using the new merge, but she's going to check out that group relationship button. Betsy's going to try the new merge. Gordon says, yay, no more canned reason statements. I agree so much. Julia says also the new merge is new to her, so she appreciates seeing the demo of it. She likes how we can switch and sort the information. Oh, Rose observes that the new merge seems to work more quickly. I agree, Rose. I think they must have made some performance improvements. Oh, Julia likes the hint about getting to the source database and doing the search when you're looking for more information. Gordon likes the three new column layout. I totally agree. I'd much rather see the comparison because the old merge, you got to that last screen, you could not see any type of comparison.